Zohran is on Fox News right now, so I'm going to obviously tune into this to see what this to see what this interview looks like.
I want to get to all the policy issues in New York, but I wanted to ask you this first. If you are asked tomorrow night if you give credit to President Trump for the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas and the return of the 20 living hostages, would you raise your hand?
You know, first I want to say it's a real pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me. And it's an honor to have this opportunity to speak to so many New Yorkers and Americans across the country. And when it comes to the ceasefire, I am thankful, and I have hope that it will actually endure and that it will be lasting. And I continue to have concerns because I've seen reports still, just this in the last few days, that 5 Palestinians were killed by the Israeli military. And that's what gives me pause about issuing any kind of praise or celebration at a moment when it is still so in its infancy. And what I will tell you is that in that same moment, it is also one that requires a focus on ensuring that that hope, that belief in a better future is one that is emblematic in our policies right here in New York City as well. And that's what we're hoping to lead with.
So would you give President Trump credit or not, to any extent? Credit or not?
I think it's too early to do so.
Too early to say.
But if it proves to be something that is lasting, something that is durable, then I think that that's where you give credit.
Absolutely.
So,
good call.
You've denounced Israel and the United States for the response to the slaughter on October the 7th. In fact, at times you've called it a lasting stain, the response, and at times you have left October 7th out of your statements completely around this issue.
Oh, brother.
Right now, you just talked about Israelis killing some Palestinians, but Hamas is killing Palestinians within Gaza. And they have not returned the bodies that they promised to return, including 2 Americans. Itai Chen and Omer Nutra, whose families we have interviewed over these months. So
I hope he turns around and says, look,
to what Hamas
Trump actually has a clear-eyed vision on this.
I think those are bodies and remains that should absolutely be returned. And I think that I have no issue with critiquing Hamas or the Israeli government, because my critiques all come from a place of universal human rights. And my focus, however, is right here in New York City and transforming the most expensive city in America into one that's affordable for each and every New Yorker.
Nice.
Okay, and I want to get to that, absolutely. But do you believe that Hamas should lay down their weapons and leave the leadership in Gaza?
I believe that any future here in New York City is one that we have to make sure that's affordable for all. And as it pertains to Israel and Palestine, that we have to ensure that there is peace. And that is the future that we have to fight for.
But you won't say that Hamas should lay down their arms and give up leadership in Gaza.
I'm running for mayor of New York.
About the future of Hamas and Israel beyond the question of justice and safety, and the fact that anything has to abide by international law. And that applies to Hamas, that applies to the Israeli military, applies to anyone you could ask me about.
Okay. One last thought on that. You have said that you would arrest Netanyahu if he came to the United States. You've been very outspoken in your criticism of him. Do you stand by that? You would arrest him if he came here, if you were mayor?
I've said that this is a city that believes in international law, and this is a city that wants to uplift and uphold those beliefs. The Prime Minister...
The United States doesn't stand by the International Criminal Court.
It hasn't signed the treaty for the International Criminal Court. The International Criminal Court, however, has issued a warrant for the arrest of Benjamin Netanyahu.
But what grounds in the United States could you arrest him on?
As it has for Vladimir Putin. I've said that I believe that we should uphold arrest warrants by the International Criminal Court, and that we should do so only in abiding with all of the laws in front of us. I'm not going to make a new law to ensure that we can actually do this.
Do you think that Commissioner Tisch would allow you to arrest Netanyahu in New York City?
I've appreciated Commissioner Tisch's leadership of the NYPD, and I think that she's done a good job at lowering crime across the city.
But do you think that she would go along with arresting Netanyahu in New York?
I can tell you that I'm going to exhaust every legal option in front of me, not to make new laws to do so.
All right, so we got that business at the top of the interview. Coming up as part 2 when we move on to New York City. And the candidate, Mayor Mamdani's plan to radically reshape a lot of what's happening in New York City when we come back. A lot to dig into.
What is happening,
we'll also
bro?
Get our panel to respond with David Asman and Robert Wolf to the interview coming up next. Stay with us.
They're farming him for ads? Yeah, this is a transparent shanking that's taking place. But I think, all things considered, he did a decent job of trying to get back to what he will do for New York, trying to address everything from the perspective of what he would do as the mayor of New York. Okay? Jesus Christ, dude. Jesus Christ. What an insane situation. What an insane situation, man. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, just like with the why won't you go to Tel Aviv? Why won't you go to Tel Aviv narratives that blew up during the primary debates, this kind of stuff and his dancing around the issue is going to make people go, why are they fucking being so annoying about Israel? Okay. I think this helps him. I don't think he should have any issues. I don't think he should have any issues whatsoever just being like, guys, why are you asking me about this? Okay. I'm running for mayor of New York. I'm not running for mayor of Tel Aviv. Please stop. I think Israel is doing a whole bunch of awful stuff. And I think that, I want to abide by the international standards presented by the International Criminal Court and the ICJ. Please stop asking me about this ridiculous nonsense when there is a mayoral election, a mayoral race coming up. Okay.
ChatGPT, where is the capitalist and global finance center of the world? And it said New York City, which made me feel good as someone who loves New York City. Is that a moniker that you're proud of and one that you want to continue for this city?
We should be proud of it, and I will also say that that's one thing you have in common with Andrew Cuomo, because he also uses ChatGPT to answer many questions, including how to actually resolve the housing crisis in this city. And It's time that we are not only proud of us being the financial capital, the cultural capital, but also we should make it a capital of where working people can afford to live in this city. Because right now what we're seeing is that 1 in 4 New Yorkers are being priced out of the wealthiest city and the wealthiest country in the history of the world.
That's absolutely true. One of the things that's also true is that JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs have moved major operations to Texas. They've not abandoned New York, but they're hedging their bets on New York because of the increased taxes that they see coming if you become mayor. So when they do that, jobs move out of the city as well. So how does that help affordability if people in the city don't have the jobs that they once had here?
Well, I am looking to make this a city that every person chooses, whether they're a business leader or they're someone who works for that business. And the key ways of doing that are actually delivering quality of life, public safety, and affordability for each and every person. Because what we're seeing right now is we have a broken status quo. We have a corrupt political system, and we have the politicians that sustain that. That's really what's on the ballot, is whether New Yorkers want to continue that or whether they actually want a city they can afford. That's what I'm going to deliver.
So, Governor Hochul, you would have to get approval from the legislature to raise individual taxes, income taxes, and also corporate taxes in New York, which you've said you would like to do in order to pay for the free buses and the free childcare and the different programs, the government grocery stores and the like. She says no new taxes in her governor's race. So what are you going to do if she won't allow taxes to be raised? How will you pay for these programs?
You know, I've said time and again that I believe these are the most straightforward ways that we can actually fund universal childcare, making buses fast and free. And I've said that the 2 clear ways to do so, raising personal income taxes on the top 1% by 2%, and raising the corporate tax to match that of New Jersey's corporate tax of 11.5%. Now, if there are other ways to raise this money to fund this agenda, the most important thing is that we fund the agenda. I still think that these are the most important and clear ways we can do it. And I'm thankful to have Governor Hochul's support in this race, and the fact that she said we have a shared commitment to delivering universal childcare for New Yorkers across the city and the state.
I think that's great. I think everybody would love to have free health care and free buses and all these things, but the question is, how do you pay for it? The city's already in debt. The governor says no to new taxes. Like Margaret Thatcher said, socialism's great until you run out of everyone else's money, other people's money.
Well, what Andrew Cuomo said is that if he had $959 million, he'd give it to Elon Musk in tax credits, because that's exactly what he did. And I bring that up to you to say that it's often a question of whether you have the willingness to spend that money to benefit working class people, not where that money is in the first place.
So what would you cut? What would you draw from to do it?
I don't think we have to cut. I've spoken about raising taxes on the wealthiest. And frankly, this is an issue that we have here in New York City, and frankly, even across this country. When I've spoken to Trump voters right here in New York City, Hillside Avenue in Queens, Fordham Road in the Bronx, they've told me it was cost of living that drove them to vote for Donald Trump. They've told me it was a promise of a lower whether it be cheaper groceries, whether it be childcare, whether it be rent. And what we're seeing time and time again is we're more focused on the question of billionaires and the most profitable corporations than we are on people who can't even afford to make ends meet in this city.
Well, we know affordability is an issue, and I think that all politicians are getting to an understanding of that, and I think that you've done a lot, actually, to bring people's attention to that issue. Let's take a look at the free buses issue just for a moment, because I know you said that the pilot project that you did was one of the biggest accomplishments of being an assemblyman. The Washington Post said this in an editorial about this. Quality inevitably declines when a service is offered for free. Vagrants and drug addicts would camp out all day on New York's buses, especially in the winter. Parents would go afraid to let their children ride alone. Wealthier residents would find another way to get around, but poor New Yorkers who depend on the bus would suffer the most. What do you say to that? Do you agree with that?
Well, I would say that they should actually look at the report of the 5 free buses we delivered across New York City. We didn't see an increase in homelessness. We did see an increase in New Yorkers riding the bus. We did see
demons, bro. They're demons. They will use the working poor against one another.
We also saw a decrease
in an effort to
stop
the working poor from getting better buses.
Getting on the bus.
It is so fucked up.
We're doing so. That's why we care so deeply about this, because of the fact that it can actually deliver economic, public safety, and even congestion relief to New Yorkers who are looking to take these buses.
I know that you're turning 34 on Saturday, and I want to talk about your qualifications. You know, some say you have never run a business in your life, so I'm curious.
Why is that a qualification for mayor?
That you never worked a day in your life. You've worked as an assemblyman, and you've had other positions in the government.
Andrew Cuomo's entire qualification was he was the son of a famous New York politician.
Experience to run the largest city in the country.
You know, I want to take this moment because you spoke about President Trump, and he may be watching right now, and I just want to speak directly to the president, which is that I will not be a mayor like Mayor Adams who will call you to figure out how to stay out of jail. I won't be a disgraced governor like Andrew Cuomo who will call you to ask how to win this election. I can do those things on my own. I will, however, be a mayor who's ready to speak at any time to lower the cost of living. That's the way that I'm going to lead this city. That's the partnership I want to build, not only with Washington, D.C., but anyone across this country. I think it's important because too often the focus on the needs of working class Americans, working class New Yorkers are put to the side as we talk more and more about the very kinds of corrupt politicians like Andrew Cuomo that delivered us into this kind of crisis.
So the question I asked you was what specifically in your background gives you the confidence that you can run a $115 billion budget and run this city specifically from your personal experience and your background?
I've been a state assembly member here in New York City. I've represented 130,000 people in Queens. And in the time that I've done so, I've not only delivered more than $100 million in increased bus and subway service, I've also secured $500 million in debt relief for working class taxi drivers. President Trump knows this. New Yorkers know this across the 5 boroughs. Taxis, as we're looking at them right here, are such a part of what we love about this city. And yet those same drivers were sold a lie about a ticket to the middle class if they bought a medallion. I stood with those drivers. I organized with those drivers. I went on a 15-day hunger strike with those drivers. And we secured $500 million in debt relief that allows those drivers to do more than just think about struggle.
How many employees would you be overseeing in the New York City government?
More than 300,000.
300,000. That's a lot of people. But thank you for answering the question. I know that you want to stimulate small business in the city, and we all walk around the city that we love, and we see a lot of empty storefronts. So give me your plan on how you would do that.
You know, I've spoken to a lot of New Yorkers for whom their aspiration, their dream is in that small business.
More affordability.
And I've told them that we are going to make it easier to not only open it, but keep it open. We're going to cut fines and fees by 50%, because as you said, we have a city government that has a $116 billion budget. It's not funded by charging a restaurant $25 a year for the right to sell a frozen dessert. We're going to streamline the regulations and rules that these small businesses have to adhere to. Because today, if you want to open up a barbershop, you have to fill out 24 forms, go to 7 agencies, 12 in-person activities. And furthermore, we're going to have a mom and pop czar, someone that'll help these businesses navigate through this. Because while we are holding these kinds of businesses to these kinds of rules, we're letting the most profitable corporations walk all over us here in New York City. And it's part of the problem where so many New Yorkers look around at the wealthiest city in the wealthiest country in the history of the world and asking themselves, there's all this money, why can't I afford $2.90 to even ride the bus?
So let me just quick question on that, and I want to get to public safety because it's obviously another big issue for New Yorkers. So a lot of individuals in this city pay more than 50% of their income in taxes. When you talk about a fair share, how much more than what is the fair share? What's the number?
I've said that we should increase personal income taxes by 2%.
Is fair.
And my point is this:
give up more than half of your income. That's
if you're making $1 million in New York City or more than that, you can afford to pay 2% more. And the reasons you can afford to do so is because that money will be used to better your quality of life as well.
Yeah.
Because when I speak to the wealthiest New Yorkers, I hear concerns about the cleanliness of the city.
I feel like he's dominating this conversation. It's very good.
Questions of public safety. This money is the money that will be used to deliver on those things so that we can ensure that we have a return on investment for all of the money that we are raising and spending right here across the 5 boroughs.
I want to talk to you about public safety and your relationship with the police. So just in terms of public safety, I want to go to an example first, because I hear from people that they don't feel safe walking home at night. There's drug addicts on the street, right around the corner here. You can walk around the corner and see people shooting up. A lot of garbage on the streets right now. The subway is something that people are really
They invented garbage cans last year, bro.
Nicola Tanzi, who was a church leader, a pillar in his community, was brutally beaten to death. I tried to watch this video in preparation. It's very hard to watch. In a subway station in Brooklyn, 25-year-old David Mazarregos had a 20-inch sword. He's the suspect in this case. He was out.
Okay.
They lowered his
If the
bail
wealthy
so that he
want
could
to
get
appreciate
out.
a
He was
beautiful
already
city
waiting a
that's
trial
well run,
for,
they have
attacking
to fucking
someone in
open up their
Chelsea.
wallets a little
33
bit.
past
That's how this
arrests.
works. A lot of
You
these
were in
crimes are
favor
crimes
of
born out
bail
of people
reform.
not
Does
getting
that
the
make you
appropriate
wanna
treatment
change
that they
your mind or think
need.
twice
It's
about
that fucking simple.
reversing that?
People want to live in New York
This
City,
is a
but they don't want to
horrific
pay New York
incident,
City
and it's the same
taxes.
video that
It's
I saw.
fucking ridiculous. There's
And
a
it's
reason
one
why
that
it's one of the
horrifies
best
New Yorkers
cities
across
in the
the 5
United
boroughs,
States
and
of
it's
America.
completely
Okay, I say that
unacceptable.
as someone who
And what
doesn't
it
live
makes
there,
me
but I
think
love
about
New York
is the
City.
necessity of providing public safety in our New York City subway system and across the 5 boroughs. And also, how do we end the revolving door? Because when you look further into the case of whether this individual or so many individuals, especially those suffering from mental health issues, what we find is so often the only mental health system that we have that's functioning in the city is Rikers Island. 40% of the incarcerated population there are suffering from serious mental illness.
Why was he on the street is the question. Why was he on the street?
Because we have a broken system.
They lowered his bail. He had a bail he couldn't pay. Then they lowered the bail, and then he could pay it. Imagine if you're this family, and they look at 33 prior arrests, and why? Why was this man on the street? What would stop him in your administration from being on the street?
Because what we would do is actually address the systemic problems that would ensure that someone who goes through the system this many times is actually, his issues are addressed, the services are provided. Right now, all we have is going in and out, especially when it comes to mental health. I'll give you an example.
Where would he be in your world? Where would he be? In a mental institution?
He would actually be getting services from the first time that he was arrested, as opposed to having to go through them 33 times. If you look at the New York Times, they did an investigation on 1,000 different incidents of violent crime in the city tied to mental health episodes. Yeah. They found that so many of those same New Yorkers were failed by the interactions they had with the city when they went for help, for mental health assistance. And that failure is a blight, it is a stain on our city, and it's a failure that I'm looking to fix by actually transforming this with the only comprehensive plan for public safety of any of the candidates. Because what we are going to do is put out a plan and a proposal that we have shared with New Yorkers to create the Department of Community Safety that would bring together all of these pre-existing silos that address mental health crisis, that address homelessness into one department, provide it with the funding necessary, and actually address this crisis.
Where do these people go, though, is my question. Are you going to put them in a mental institution so they can be taken care of? Or are you going to leave them at home on medication? What's the plan?
There's a plan right now that allows for involuntary confinement, which I think should be a last resort, because of the fact that when you look at the actual results, this is something that so often doesn't actually have what has been spoken about. But what we have today that actually works for New Yorkers with serious mental illness, there are things like Fountain House. This is a clubhouse model, peer-led rehabilitative treatment for New Yorkers with serious mental illness. It costs $4,000 to have someone in Fountain House for a year. That's the cost of being on Rikers for 3 days. And what we see, however, is that those services, they increase employment by 50%, they reduce hospitalization by up to 45%, and they actually reduce the cost of healthcare as well for those same New Yorkers. This is what we're looking at. This is why we say that Rikers is broken, the system is broken.
You can just see people who are suffering up and down 8th Avenue, just as one example. And I hope we'll have a chance to talk more about that next time. But I don't want you to leave without me asking you about your relationship with the police, because obviously this is a big issue. You said in the past, I almost don't need to go through it, it's been said many times, but that you called the police force racist, said they were a major threat to public safety, called them wicked and corrupt. And now the report that you apologized to 24 members of the NYPD. What did you say to them?
I apologized for the language that I used, and I spoke to them about the fact that I want to work with them to deliver public safety. Because what we're seeing in the city right now is we're asking officers to do nearly everything we can think of. We used to ask officers to focus on serious crimes. Now we're asking them to focus also on the mental health crisis, to focus also on homelessness. In 1 year alone, the NYPD receives 200,000 mental health calls. in 1 year.
Yeah, and you know what they told me? That 1 out of 3 of those, the person they're very, very dangerous interactions. You're going to send a social worker in there?
You can always have a police officer actually come to address that. But look, you're saying 1 out of 3. 2 out of 3 times, if you don't need the police and you're sending them to do that, then why aren't you sending them to respond to shootings and murders? 5-6 years ago, the response time for officers was closer to 10 minutes. Now it's closer to 16 minutes. New Yorkers deserve a police department that is asked to do the things that it can possibly do, not one that covers the failures of every break in the social safety net.
So police officers that I spoke to, they don't want a behind closed doors apology. They want a broad public apology for the things that you suggested about them. Will you do that right now?
Absolutely,
oh my God.
I'll apologize to police officers right here, because this is the apology that I've been sharing with many rank and file officers. And I apologize because of the fact that I'm looking to work with these officers, and I know that these officers, these men and women who serve in the NYPD, they put their lives on the line every single day. And I will be a mayor that
What changed your mind about it?
You know, I moved to the city when I was 7 years old. I grew up here. And 2 of the things that I thought often about was safety and
before
justice.
People say, before
and
people
growing
get
up
mad,
here, learning about the case of the exonerated
him trying to win the election. This is him already after winning the election, governing. Okay, this is not for winning the election. It doesn't fucking matter. He could be like, the cops can suck my cock. He's still gonna win, most likely. This is not for winning the election. This is for governing as a mayor.
That justice?
A lot of people don't understand. Anyway, I'll get into it in a second.
People in Western Queens is that to deliver that justice, you have to also deliver that safety. And that means representing the men and women in the NYPD. It means representing the black and brown New Yorkers who've been victims of police brutality. It means representing the Muslim New Yorkers in my district who were surveilled on the basis of their faith.
And 68% of independent voters want more police officers on the street. And Cuomo, tomorrow night in that debate, he's going to say, I'm going to bring 5,000 more police officers to the street. Will you match that and agree with him on that?
I don't look to Andrew Cuomo for leadership. And
will you put 5,000 more cops on the street?
I've been very clear. I want to keep the number of officers that we have, and I want to make it easier for those officers to do their job. And what that means is that we allow officers to focus on serious crimes. And for all of the focus on the head count, we should focus on the retention crisis. When I started running for mayor, 200 officers were leaving the department every month. Now it's 350. And a lot of them are leaving because there's simply no way they can do their job in what's being asked of them. And to your point, however, Andrew Cuomo is going to say a lot of things tomorrow night on the debate stage. And frankly, I wish it was more like NASCAR, so New Yorkers could see the billionaires that were sponsoring him right on his suit jacket. Because this is a man who had 10 years. And I know now that it's politically convenient, he watches Fox News as well. So I'll just speak to him directly. Andrew, you had your chance to lead this state. You took that time to sell out working class New Yorkers to your billionaire donors. And instead of actually meeting the needs of people who couldn't afford to live in the city, you gave $959 million in tax breaks to Elon Musk. And now you want us to believe that we can't spend less money than that to make every bus fast and free in the same city.
All right. I'm squeezing two very quick ones here, if you can answer them quickly. Commissioner Tisch, you have suggested that you want her to stay. Have you asked her to stay, and has she said yes? Because I think that is one issue that would go a long way towards police retention.
I think she absolutely has
I've said that I appreciate Commissioner Tisch's record of uprooting corruption in the upper echelons of the NYPD. Yep. I've appreciated her presiding over drops in crime across the city, and I continue to actively consider her to be my police commissioner. I haven't made any personnel commitments.
Okay, so you don't want to ask her right now?
No. That's the kind of conversation I would actually have in person, in private, not a politics of theater.
Okay, it's an issue that a lot of people brought up with me when I told them I was going to be speaking with you. Last question. You want to have a World Cup czar. I know you're a huge soccer fan, Arsenal fan.
Oh my God, they're even humanizing him. Oh my God.
I'd be happy to come back and teach you.
Oh my God.
That would be great.
A brown
what is this World Cup czar
Muslim
gonna do for New York City
34-year-old socialist getting humanized on Fox News. What are my eyes seeing?
And it's as if no one has been thinking or talking about it here in New York City government. It's coming next summer to this city. We're going to have billions of people watching. The World Cup czar is going to ensure that this is a tournament that New Yorkers remember as well, not just those who visit us. That it's a tournament that will signify an increase, not only in tourism, but for small businesses and an exploration of this city. because for too long, we have had these kinds of opportunities that we've just passed up on. I mean, we recently had the 400th anniversary of New York City. Most people have no idea.
Right, good point.
Because the city didn't do anything about it.
Well, President Trump's going to make a huge deal out of the 250th anniversary of New York City. So maybe there's an example there. And he and his family, his son is a huge soccer fan. So would you welcome them to New York to enjoy the World Cup with you?
I would welcome them to come to New York City and also to talk about how we can actually lower the cost of living, because that has to be the focus. And frankly, that's a promise that's been broken. It's time to fix it. And that's what I'm running to do.
Zohran Mamdani, thank you very much. Pleasure to talk to you. Hope we can continue the conversation. We'll be watching the debate really closely tomorrow night and the whole race as we head in.
Brother, that was fucking nutty mode, okay? That was actually crazy. That was very good. That was very, very good. Okay, so that started off incredibly hostile and actually ended on a very positive note where she literally talked about him. She literally talked about him being a sports fan. Like, that's humanizing. That's humanizing someone that level of humanizing doesn't take place for most Democrats. And I think it's because he angles the conversation always back to a key issue that even the Fox News watchers care about: affordability, 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 affordability. When you constantly go back to the major issue in American politics right now, which is material, okay, which is affordability and the cost of living crisis, it is very difficult for people to navigate that. It's very difficult for people to try and navigate that in a way where, like, you're going to look bad. Because then you're going to look like you're against affordability, against fixing the affordability crisis. And even the most elitist Fox News commentator is going to have a hard time openly stating that the affordability is not that big of an issue. Couple things that I need to explain to you here. And this is left populism in action, okay? This is left populism in action. Democrats, take notes. When you are constantly talking about the winning issues that you are going to focus on, affordability, fast and free buses, things that people can actually pay attention to, things that people want, things that people want to vote for you on, they don't talk about transgender people all of a sudden. Notice how there was no conversation about, like, why won't you eviscerate trans people? Even when the conversation is about, like, Hamas, why do you want Hamas to establish a caliphate in New York, or whatever dumb fuck questions they cooked up for him? He just keeps going back to affordability and what he cares about, what he wants to actually fix. It turns out it's a major shield as well as a weapon to wield. It's a shield as well. It's a defensive shield. It's a parry. It's a riposte. You can use it. Remember that. You should be earnestly, constantly communicating about how you are going to improve people's fucking material circumstances. Oh my God. Oh my God. That was a spectacular performance in an incredibly contentious environment, in an incredibly contentious media landscape and environment. Now, the parts about the cops where he's, like, apologizing. Peak woke 2020. Everyone's saying fuck the police. Zohran is an activist. Of course, he's also saying that. He's saying that the police are racist. Are the police racist? Abso-fucking-lutely they are. As a unit, regardless of how diverse the NYPD actually is, they operate in a white supremacist fashion. We're talking about a fucking institution that did stop and frisk for decades, okay? The reason why he has to suck police penis as hard as he possibly can is not because he wants to fucking win the election by doing that, even though policing as an institution is unfortunately unimaginably popular in this country, despite the reality that they are a brutal force that is unaccountable, and very consequential reforms must be made, okay? The reason why he has to suck police penis, get down on his knees and give it a heavy suck, okay, and gargle on it, is because it is literally a fucking army. And he doesn't want to be Bill de Blasio, okay? He doesn't want to be a mayor like Bill de Blasio. That's it. He knows that in order to govern as the mayor of New York, you unfortunately have to fucking play ball with those guys. There is no other way to do it. Okay. That's it. This is not me saying like, oh, he's, you know, I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know what he's going to do in terms of like dealing with the NYPD. But for those in the know, the NYPD and Wall Street and the real estate developers are the three biggest hurdles in front of any New York mayor. Okay. And especially the NYPD. He has not strayed away from the way he has communicated about defunding the police without actually saying those words. He has kept repeating over and over again that the police are actually responding to calls that they shouldn't be responding to, that they should actually be working on, you know, tackling real crimes as opposed to like cleaning up homelessness. Okay? It is 100% the appropriate way to message around. Anyway, I will give you a couple additional notes as well. Obviously, there are some things, I think, that Zohran has been communicating, or some things that worry me a little bit, because I read the Ested Herndon piece, and I even talked to Ested after the fact. And he is signaling in some ways that he is going to Barack Obama the situation, and I don't like that at all, and that actually does worry me quite a bit. But maybe it's because he is, you know, hiding his power level, or maybe he's doing it because he is genuinely invested in being a Barack Obama style figure. Because there were a couple things he said where he wants to have like a diversity of opinion in the governance side, and I think that is a little bit terrifying. But we shall see. Like I said, we shall see.